Jason, today's episode of the Lee Summit Town Hall podcast is brought to the good people by Budget Blinds.
Budget Blinds!
Hey, did you know Signature Series automated shades provide a safer environment for children and pets due to their cordless nature?
All hail those robot shade overlords.
Did you know that? I mean, is this new?
Well, not for us, but, in case you are listening now, perhaps you have started the subscription in election season to wisely listen to the dulcet tones of Nick and Jason, and you are unfamiliar with our robot shade overlords, the Signature Series automated shades. Now you know.
Now you know. Those programmable features, they allow you to use heating or cooling only when you need it to hit maximum energy efficiency. So if you're ready, Jason, to make your home a smart home,
you want to make it safer and more efficient,
go see our friends at Budget Blinds of Lee Summit. Tell them Jason and Nick sent you.
Hello again, and welcome to Lee Summit Town Hall, a weekly podcast about what you can do to make a difference. I am Jason Norbury, and as always, I am joined by a man who now knows that this intro part takes just enough time for him to properly wash his hands. It's Nick Parker, the publisher of Link to Lee Summit.
Actually, I want you to know something.
Yeah?
So when I wash my hands, I do the Budget Blinds commercial.
Oh, do you?
I recite that. When I'm done, I'm clean.
Do you do the Budget Blinds part? The Budget Blinds
I
part
do. I yell it.
You do?
Yeah, in my head.
Okay, well, you should yell it out loud.
But sometimes
that would make the public
sometimes
bathrooms
my
really interesting.
inside voice is not very inside.
Yeah. I just start that right at the sink. That would make things uncomfortable in the men's bathroom. I'm going to say that out loud. All right. Link to Lee Summit is the source for all the news you need about our very fine city, and our unofficial sponsor today is the Subtweet. We're not going to mention you by name, but you're going to know how we feel.
Wow.
That goes back that's way deep in the mix, and so everyone's going to wonder if
that
we're
is a new
subtweeting
level
them,
of passive aggressive,
or if I'm subtweeting the coronavirus. I'm not sure which.
Nobody ever knows. Hey, we've got a special guest today. He was jealous. He was jealous.
He did. He as soon as last week's Wednesday episode went up with Julie Cook on it for number 6, we got a call.
I was getting frantic text messages.
Like, why? Well, come on! I gotta get on.
We are joined. We're gonna get to him in a little bit. We are going to be joined today by Matt Sanning, and we're going to talk a little bit about. We're going to continue a conversation about community involvement. Jason, you and I started it in the last couple of episodes. Really didn't start. We kind of got back to it, but I think it's a good to get back to that theme of why we talk about the things we do and about how easy it is for people to get involved in the community. Before we get there, though, let's talk about a couple of things.
There's nothing official city government-y, school boardy business going on.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of real hard news.
Thing.
So we're just gonna give some announcements.
All right.
First, I don't know if you guys have heard this or not. Maybe you listened last week.
Maybe we had a whole guest for it.
It's parade week.
Parade.
Emerald Isle Parade is this Saturday. Starts at noon in downtown. And guess what, Jason?
It goes on.
It goes on, rain or
shine.
The
parade must go on. That's not how it goes.
Yeah, that's not the line. But hey, look, we went from early Saturday morning. It was still calling for upper 60s and sunny, clear weather this coming Saturday, and now it might be a little cold.
It's all right.
But that's okay. The parade's still going to go on. I'm going to tell a story. So I used to have the honor of driving the mayor in the parade for about 3 years. And there was one year that it did snow, and former Mayor Randy Rhodes looked at me and he says, you know what? It's a rule in parades. You have to have the top down. So we didn't care. It was snowing. We still put the top down in the convertible, and we drove through that parade. It was a lot of fun. I kind of missed that job. That was a fun job.
He's a tough man, the former mayor. He can handle a little bit of weather and all that. But if you once you've done, you brought the kids, you gone to the parade. If you wanted to stay or maybe send the kids home and then come back, have a drink. Sam Emerald Pub Crawl.
That's true. Get a sitter, folks.
Starting at 2:00.
Get yourself a sitter.
Get yourself a sitter. Ditch the kids. Get an Uber or a taxi. Don't drive. Come downtown. It may be cold outside, but it'll be warm inside the many and various bars and establishments we have in our fine downtown.
Let's do one last announcement. This one's actually kind of a more of a businessy one. Not as much fun.
You're giving. I'm going to note here. You are giving attention to the competition.
It's not competition.
It's competition.
It is not competition.
We will crush them all.
The Lee Summit Chamber is hosting its Board of Education Candidate Forum tonight at the Missouri Innovation Campus. It is free. This is something they do every year where they allow a time for candidates to have their voices heard, and it's another opportunity for voters to get out and see who they are. They do a very different style than we do, Jason. That's how we differentiate. But look, I'm never going to complain about anybody offering more opportunity for voters to meet their candidates.
Yada, yada, yada. Voter engagement. Ours is better.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to argue with that, but just one little note that's there. They will have a forum for the city council candidates coming up later on in March. We'll let you know. Jason, are we ready to bring that other guy in?
We're going to take a break. We're going to talk some advertisement.
I got to pay those bills, man. So stay with us a little bit. We'll be back with Matt Sandy. We're going to talk a little bit more about getting involved in the community. I think it's going to be a really, really good conversation, so I hope everyone will join us. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Hi, I'm Jane Monroe, owner of Embrace the Grape and District 4 resident. Donnie Funk has my vote for City Council, and here's why. Donnie's time serving on the Planning Commission, his experience in the construction industry, and his work as a small business owner has given him the insight we need on City Council. This means that Donnie knows the questions to ask to get accountability for our tax dollars. Donnie Funk is a strong advocate for public safety and will work to ensure police and firefighters, along with all city employees, are well cared for. Join me in voting Funk for 4 on April 7th.
Have you ever wondered what factors go into creating your FICO score? If so, you're not alone. Score a Better Future is an exciting nationwide program created by FICO, the company which developed the FICO score used in over 90% of all credit granting decisions by lenders. In partnership with local nonprofit organizations, the next Score a Better Future financial community education event is coming to Kansas City. This free event will be held at the Bruce R. Watkins Cultural Heritage Center at 3700 Blue Parkway on March 19th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. Hear from FICO experts, gain access to your FICO score for free, and get one-on-one counseling from local nonprofit credit counselors. Dinner is also free, and Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver from the 5th District will be speaking. Don't miss out. Spots will go fast, so go to www.fico.com/SABF to reserve your spot today. It's time to score a better future for you and your family.
We are here with Matt Sanning, the Executive Director of Lee Summit Social Services. Matt, I just want to note this. How does number 6 feel?
A lot like number 5, but more jovial.
All right, we're more jovial.
Well, let's be honest here. So last week,
Are you going to pull the curtain back?
I am. I'm gonna let people in. Last week we had Julie Cook on. Mm-hmm. Julie was one of 3 people, including Matt, that had been on our show 5 times.
Yes, the 5 Club.
The 5 Club, and Julie was the first to 6. I think I had posted the show for about 30 seconds, and I get texts. Wait a minute!
Why am I not on?
Why? So Matt begged.
And we're here.
We're here to say yes. Matt, you're always awesome to come on the show. You do great things in the community, but you also, because of what you do in the community, you also provide some good perspective on things. And so today I wanted you to come on to continue a conversation that Jason and I started 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, probably.
About that.
In the past.
Just returning to our original conversations for the show of being involved in the community, why people should be doing things, getting involved, and how easy it really is to raise your hand and do some stuff to make good things happen in our community. So, thank you, and welcome to number 6.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
He's all like professional. It's like he flips the switch. Just here's a real behind the curtain. We're like 2 hours and 10 minutes into our time talking, and we're just now hitting the record button. So there you are, just to give you that idea. So, well, Nick wants to know about the C4 committees.
I do. I'm curious. Both Matt and you, Jason, were invited to serve on these committees, these C4 committees that are part of the strategic planning process for the city. I want to know what's going on. What have you guys been talking about? What are we doing? I've heard good things, that there are some good conversations happening about the future, vision for the future of the city. So Matt, I'm going to go to you. What committee are you serving on, and what are you guys talking about?
Oh, I'm actually on 2. So we've got the affordable.
So maybe he gets to number 6, and he's like, I'm gonna big time all y'all. Yeah. I'm on 2 C4 committees.
I just couldn't say no. In my role in this world, we want to serve, and so apparently I was the one that had nights free. But it was the Affordable Housing Committee, and then we have the Healthy Communities. Healthy Communities is pretty amazing, and it deals a lot with mental health, and that's really not my forte outside of knowing who has that skill set, and we have great partnerships with a lot of them. So they're working really hard to make sure that our community is suited to continue the exploration and solving a lot of mental health issues that are affecting our schools, and not just our schools, but the community around us. Your ability to function in the world that we live in has a lot to do with your mental ability, your mental state, your mental health. And so there's a lot of great people working on that, as well as the parks, fitness, recreation, the ability to be of service in that way to your community, and Parks and Rec are doing a great job there. The housing's been a really interesting one because we're actually delving into the subject on defining affordability, what it is and how it works.
That's a big one for me because we keep talking about this. Things keep coming before city council, and there really isn't a good number. There's not a good number that people agree on where we're all talking apples to apples in this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what are we talking about?
Well, so we're still working on that point. There's a lot of but here's the deal. And what's funny about the group that's working on it, not funny, but what the reality of it is, you've got people that believe that $250,000 is a reasonable mortgage, which puts you at whatever payment.
But that's not affordable.
Well,
right?
It depends who you ask.
It depends on your definition of affordable.
Right. So,
but when we talk about affordable, aren't we talking low income?
Well, this is the problem in Lee Summit in particular. You have something called the Area Median Income, AMI, and that's a definition that you'll hear a lot about. The individual AMI for an individual, might be somewhere around, if I'm 48,000 for an individual, and I think more like 83,000 for a family, somewhere around there. And it depends on what you look at to get the actual definition. Well, they say that affordable housing is about 30% of that number. Okay. Now, whether that be based on a monthly rent or whether that be based on a mortgage, you have to take that into consideration. Some would contend that Lee Summit is it's pretty top heavy in certain areas. And so some would say that the AMI is accurate based on census data or otherwise, but others would contend that it should be lower because you can only get to 0, but you can go up to millions. And so there are different arguments on that. So you pick a number, and then you got the builders that say we can only build a home for this amount because we're paying $30,000 for a lot, and we've got to pay the city this amount to get our
And lumber costs
and
amount of money.
everything. And so you've got the material costs and you got labor costs and things like that. They say we can't make any money under this dollar amount. But then you've got the 27 to 30 something crowd, married or not, saying we can't live in Lee Summit because we can't find anything under $185,000. So there's the question, right? It's what is affordable? What is reasonable? And affordable, unfortunately, in my opinion, has a connotation of lots of other things, not just we want to create an environment where families who want to start out in Lee Summit or move to Lee Summit can have a quality of life that they need, but rather there's a stigma attached to it, and I think that that's something that we need to do a better job as a community to communicate, to say, you know what, we've got firefighters, we've got police officers, we've got teachers, we've got young families that are working their butts off, doing everything they possibly can, and they just haven't reached the peak of their income yet. And so we're going to help them enjoy Lee Summit and make this the destination that they want to live in for the rest of the time.
Well, I'm going to turn over to you, Jason. So it's your turn now to talk about the group that you're involved in. And are you seeing similar conversations happen?
Yes, we are. I mean, so I am on the community engagement team, and full disclosure, I've had conflicts with a couple of the meetings, so I have not been as dialed into the nitty gritty of what we're dealing with. But essentially, we're trying to find better ways for the community to get information from the city, and better ways, honestly, for the city to communicate information to the people out there. So talking a lot about how do we utilize the LS Connect app, what other ways we can deal with that, any kind of digital tools, other ways. Are there ways that we're leaving behind in our shift to the digital age that's leaving segments of our community behind? So
Can't things just stay the same?
I would argue that there are a lot of people who feel just that way, but no, because the world changes around you and you have to at least adapt to what's happening in that whole process. And you know this as well. I mean, we made great celebrations when the city updated their website to make it easier to navigate, easier to find things. We had a big huzzah because the website was, sort of web 1.0 or web 2.0, but it was really hard to navigate unless you knew what you were looking for. And now it's significantly better. The search part of it works really well, those sorts of things. But, we are all moving to the computer in our pocket, and how that's utilized and how we communicate with the city, how you can find information is of significant import. And, we're all familiar. I can say my mother is a pretty savvy smartphone user, and I think most of our parents have that kind of information or that kind of stuff in their pocket, and making it easy for all the generations to look into that information and engage with it is something that's of significant importance to the city, and just to make sure, because I can't tell you how many times I've sat on the planning commission and heard someone come up, well, I didn't hear about this until 30 minutes ago or 2 days ago or whatever, when there's lots of stuff that goes out that do that. Well, the way people can follow that out, you can use that LS Connect app to reach geographical limitations. So if something is coming up as a public hearing, you get a notification. You could do things like that. Is that something we want to do, or how we want to go through that whole process? Is a really interesting question.
Isn't that is probably the number one complaint from people in the community, no matter what we're talking about, is always, I didn't know, or how do I know, how do I stay in touch? And we even, Jason, we're in the midst of candidate interviews again, but since we started doing this in 2016, I think, one question we've asked every candidate every election season has been about communication. How are you going to communicate with your constituents? How are you going to keep them involved, not just to pass information, but to take information?
Right. And as we get to, we're 100,000 people in the city now, it's not possible for everyone to be dialed into everything that goes on. We have our own lives. Even someone as involved as our interview guest over here doesn't know all the ins and outs of every, economic development and planning thing that's going on, because Matt, you have your own focuses, right? You're dealing with the needs of the people who need your services at the thing. You're out trying to collect, money and stuff and the things to make your system run. You don't have time to pay attention to the zoning change and one spot down by Raintree or something like that. It's not something that's going to be available to you. So how do we communicate that? When can we make that in a way to get people to go?
Platforms are difficult, especially in the nonprofit world. You have a ton of platforms, some dedicated strictly to nonprofits, and other ones that are just out there, between United Way 211 to Human Services Advisory Board creating their own booklet on nonprofits, to Facebook groups, not Facebook pages, but groups that are specific to a particular subset, whatever that is. It can be really challenging to manage all the places that you need to be. Truman Heartland Community Foundation, Greater Kansas City Community Foundation, different elements with the Ministerial Alliance. You have to make sure that you're available there, and then you have to be able to maintain it and keep it. So, no.
I think you're right. It's real easy
challenging
to fall into a trap to think everybody is there. And I'm gonna give an example. Last year we hosted a cancer awareness event last spring, and the group you run, Lead Summit Social Services, we wanted to make sure people knew that, hey, here's a place. If you're uninsured, you can come get mammograms. And I just instinctively thought, well, we'll just put everything out on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook. And one of your first responses was, the clients I work with aren't on Facebook. And so I think it's real easy to forget all of the different places that people get their information.
Yeah, it's and it's one of those things where you want to make sure that we had an interview with United Way, and we were sitting in a room with a bunch of people that were making a decision on our funding that's getting ready to come up, a 3-year stream of funding. And we mentioned our presence on Facebook to be able to reach out to those in need, but also to communicate lots of different things. The first thing that came up was our clients may not have access to social media. A lot of clients do, some clients do not. But more importantly, when you're in a community that is as connected as we are, the fact that potential donors or potential do-gooders are aware that we're here, they identify those that are in need, and they share that along with the printed publications, the internet publications, the internet streams, however the terms are now. But I mean, we have to make sure that
I prefer digital publication.
Digital publications. We have to make sure that we're available in a lot of different elements, because we don't know how our clients, our potential donors or volunteers, are receiving their media. And for a small nonprofit, that is one of the most challenging facets, because our bandwidth in order to accommodate all these needs is really limited. And so we have to find somebody that knows what they're doing and knows where to reach out. We had our pancake breakfast a couple of weeks ago. Channel 4 showed up. It was awesome. It was fantastic. We didn't know they were going to show up until the day before, but a simple press release reached out to them. Then we had a Kansas City Star reporter show up. It was great. But it's really difficult to make sure that you're reaching the right audience, and letting people know where you're at and what you're doing. So yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges that I think most nonprofits, small nonprofits, face, because they don't have a budget to go out and do all the crazy stuff that they're doing with the Super Bowl and everything else. So we're very fortunate to have the support in the community to make sure our word can get out.
Well, I think that's a good place for us to kind of shift over, and I want to talk a little bit more about not just your organization, but organizations in general. We've had you on before, and you've talked about how people can get involved with your group and help you out and meet your goals. But I think just from a general 30,000-foot perspective, as somebody who runs a nonprofit, what are you looking for when people say, "Hey, how can I help?" What would you say nonprofit organizations are looking for mostly from people who say, I want to show up, I want to do something?
People that do exactly that. You want a volunteer to come into the agency, or a donor that has a compassion for what you're doing. And it could be anything. They could be an electrician or a mechanic or a great donor, but what you need is someone who's willing to give everything they've got to that agency, regardless of what their other life tells them to do or has them doing. They could be raising 4 kids and have soccer games on the weekend, or they could be working 80 hours a week as an attorney. But I want them to be committed to the agency and to do what it is that they want to do to serve others. And that could be with any agency anywhere. You can put everything down and focus on exactly what that purpose is. I think that's easy to dismiss sometimes. We try to connect someone on a different level or connect them with their daily life, but sometimes people just need to get away and serve others, because that's what makes them whole. And so someone that's committed and willing to do whatever it takes, whether it be sweeping the floors that day, cleaning the toilets, or helping a client carry out their bags of food, whether that be over One Good Meal or cold water or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's someone that's willing to put everything down on in their daily life, or at least understand that they're trying to do their absolute best and support them in whatever way they can.
I always like to remind people too, I think that there are different types of being involved. There are some people that have the means and are fantastic about writing giant checks, and we all love them.
Thank you, all of you.
But there are also people who don't have that kind of ability, but they can put in time. You talked about sometimes it's sweeping the floor, sometimes it's making phone calls, sometimes it's just showing up to do whatever. I always like to joke when it comes to downtown Main Street is I'm just going to be here. You tell me what you need. Put me somewhere.
Right, but I would say that a lot of people don't have even that level of, engagement at first, right? I mean, at first, something has to bring you into the fold, into whatever organization, whether it's social services or downtown or Coldwater or pick your thing, whatever that might be, and you have a thing that brings you in the door, and it may be I really like what you're doing. I know you need something. We'll help you with that, or I have a skill that I think may be applicable to where you're going or what you're doing, or honestly, even a little bit of a, in the downtown, right? One of the things that the downtown really likes is their businesses to be involved. Well, the businesses are involved because it's also in the back end. It's good for the businesses,
right?
The more people are downtown, the more people see their signs, the more people come to their business.
And that's okay.
Right,
it's okay to get involved and have it also help yourself.
Because, let's be honest, that was one of the reasons that I started being involved in downtown in the first place, and it has led down a path that I would never have anticipated, 12 years ago when I started down here. But you get in that door. It's like, oh, I'll do this, and the benefit will inure back to me, and then but maybe that hook gets in there, and that's that thing. And you may have, someone comes to social services because they're a mechanic and they want to do mechanic pro bono work, to borrow lawyer words, right? And
nobody likes that.
Yeah, I know. But but they may want to do this. Like, I have this skill that I can give, and then you do that, and then that builds from there, and then you meet those people where they are, right? And so everyone out there who's listening to this has a skill or an interest or a desire, right? Or a cause that touches them in some way. And our job, Nick, or, your job, Matt, my job is to say, okay, you're touched by our organization in this way. Let's work that. Let's engage that process.
Yeah, we had a painter that had a challenging story and had spent some time, their family had spent some time with us, and we were assisting where we could. And the painter called and said, hey, my paintings are getting ready to be shown in a gallery, and I'd like to benefit the proceeds of one or two of my paintings to your agency as a thank you, and I'd like to do this on an ongoing basis. And I can't say that I had ever met this individual, but it touched her family, touched their family, and it made a difference in their lives. And she has a talent, and someone with a food truck did the same thing. And so we see these little components maybe 20 years later, but when they're ready. I had a gentleman at one point in time call me and say, hey, I think we're doing okay now, and this is what I do, and I'd like to give back to your agency. And I think the extent of it was, wait till you're completely stable. Wait until you have everything under your feet. And then I tell you what, let's talk after that. I don't want you to sacrifice anything that you're dealing with right now as you're trying to get everything in place. I want you to feel comfortable. But what was great about it was the acknowledgement, the recognition that they had come that far. They had made it to a point where they're feeling so much better about their quality of lives. It was great. We don't get a lot of feedback. It's just the nature of our industry. We don't.
You guys are doing a good job.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. But we don't, because we don't have a start and stop, and that's one of the challenges. There's no start and stop. It's just we do what we do on an emergency basis and make sure that these families are taken care of. But when we have those great stories come in, it makes 11 staff members feel like what they're doing is the right thing. And we know we can comply with all the books and all the recommendations, but to see somebody come in and share that feedback, it doesn't matter what the books say at that point. We're doing the right thing. And that's what feels good about it. So I know I went off on a tangent and Nick wants to talk, but this was great.
I always want to talk.
Yeah, well, sure. And you're good at it.
I mean, let's be fair. I do this thing.
You kind of run the show.
Because I like to talk a lot. Well, I think you touched on something there. I think one of the reasons I tell people to get involved is we all want to feel like we're in the know, right? Can we say that's kind of that's a common theme? Everybody wants to feel like they're part of the club, they're in the know.
I wouldn't accuse everyone in this room of being
but I tell people, I'm like, look, it's easy. You can be in the know too. You can be part of these things, and it's not a difficult thing to do, to raise your hand or to go to someone you know. I mean, we all have friends all over town, and we've all even talked about how we have friends in different parts of town that aren't involved. Mm-hmm. That they go to work, they do stuff with their family, they take their kids to sporting events, they do whatever everybody else is doing, our crazy busy lives that we have. But it's not that hard to just say, hey, I want to do something more. I want to be involved in that because I like it. I always tell the story. I got involved with downtown because I just went to a friend and said, hey, I want to do something. Where should I go? And she said, oh, you just raised your hand, so now you're going to go do these things. And I both love and hate her for that. But I think that's a really just kind of a good thing to remind people when you get teased about, oh, you are always in the know, things. Well, I'm like, well, it's just because I tried. I just raised my hand, and you can do that too. And you feel good, right?
Yeah. It doesn't take a ton of work, right? I mean, the company you keep and the people you surround yourself with, you always want to be part of that community, whatever that is. And you have the benefit of, in my case, I have the benefit of working in District 1, but living in District 4. I have great friends in both areas, and I get to experience Lee Summit in a lot of different ways that other people don't know yet or haven't done or that have been doing for many years. And I think the best thing about Lee Summit is there's so many different examples of how you can contribute and serve your community, whether it be at your school, the local high school or elementary school, in whatever district you serve. You can be part of the best town in America and watch that thing grow and go crazy and enjoy it. You can watch the improvements made in other parts of the town.
You can even run your neighborhood swim team.
Yeah, well, or you can just say, you know what, we'll leave that to somebody else. But we're going to give that to me. There's so many good opportunities out there, and all it is just talking to a friend. And I think you're always there. There's not even 6 degrees of separation between, an opportunity and somebody who's doing something really pretty cool that you would enjoy. And so, yeah, no, I agree with you, Nick, 100%. There's absolutely opportunities. All you have to do is ask, and it's there.
Well, I'm gonna bring up a little different side of things. There are some people who hesitate to get involved, or who were involved and then get out because there can be some grief along the way, and there are some people who think that if you're involved in something, you don't get to voice opinions about other things, or that if you're involved in something, you're always speaking for that organization, and I can understand the frustration that brings, especially during what we call silly season, Jason.
Yes, it is.
During the election time. But is there a way to combat that? Is there a way to keep people coming back to say, hey, you can ignore those things?
Okay, so I actually was on our HOA board as a pool committee chairman. And I remember one day.
This is why we put him in charge.
Wait, is that an actual thing?
This is why we put him in charge of our.
You said this, and I thought you were actually no.
Okay. Let me be fair. I did that because I know you have been sitting on your hands this entire time, trying not to brag about your kids and their neighborhood swim team who just won a big championship for their swim team.
4 consecutive years.
So. Look, Matt's been wanting to brag, and he was being really good. But guess what, Matt? You're a dad, and dads and moms get to brag about their kids and their kids' sporting teams. So that's fine. Congratulations to what's your swim team's name?
Empire Swim Club.
Congratulations to Empire Swim Club for winning a 4th consecutive city championship.
We're amazing. Yep.
City championship?
It is actually Missouri Valley.
Missouri Valley Championship. Oh, look, he's holding up the 4. So congratulations. Now we'll get back to the other thing.
Yep. No, but. As an HOA volunteer, one of the biggest challenges was making sure that you were able to meet your expectations as you thought that they were spelled out, and then not be treated like an employee, right? The biggest challenge as a volunteer is that somebody explained to me one time this concept of Apache leadership. And they said that the Apaches would ride their horses into the ground and then they would eat them. And it didn't make sense until they explained the second part, which was one of the things that we do to our best volunteers is that we require so much of them, and the great volunteers will always say yes, yes, yes. And then all of a sudden, they're tired, they're burned out, they have given everything they have to give, and there's nothing else. And they've sacrificed themselves, their family, whatever, to give to the cause that they believed. And so when you're trying to manage volunteers responsibly, the one thing that you understand is that they're able to go to work every single day. They're able to do the job that they want to do and that pays the bills. And then they're able to vent and decompress in an area that gives them a great amount of joy. And one of the challenges as a nonprofit is you never want to have any conflict between the nonprofit's needs to execute on their expectations and or run off a great volunteer, someone who gives their times. And so you have to be very balanced in how you manage that. And you have those conversations responsibly, and you make sure that you know the quality of person that you have in your entity, in your agency, and come to an agreement that this is the type of person that I know will put everything down when they show up to my agency and focus on the purpose of the agency. And then in their free time and what they do and where they work, we're going to let them do what they need to do, because you know what? That $10 check or that $50 check or that $1,000 check might be in the mail because they were able to have that opportunity and that salary to be able to provide to the agency that they care about. So it's a big deal for us.
Or even 10 hours of volunteer work. Because not everybody can give the $10,000
That's
check,
right.
the $50,000.
Absolutely.
But it could be ours.
Yes. Jason's writing a check tonight, and we don't know to who. There's a raffle. There's a raffle. I just want to put it on my wall.
Well, and I think that this starts to highlight there's some differences between volunteers and what they do, and I think you eloquently put that out there to a certain extent. I mean, to the extent it doesn't actually damage the mission, right? The volunteer, when they're not doing their volunteer work for you, they are free to be their own person and their own thing. Because whatever brings them to you doesn't necessarily align or match up to the rest of whatever Matt Sanning has going on in his.
And I think that's fair at whatever level of volunteer they are, whether they're donor, somebody who just volunteers time,
right,
volunteers on a board.
Right, to an extent, but there is a place where those cross over. Right, I mean,
that's fair.
As a board member, as you are probably aware, there are times when you are, even if you're not empowered officially to speak on behalf of an organization that you may serve, your words get imputed with that organization. They get tied together. Like it or not, it does happen. And as a professional, the line's even blurrier. And so it's a difficult task when you're sitting there and you're trying to say, I am private citizen X and I serve over here, but in another part of my life, I have opinions and I wish to voice them. And provided that there are lines that none of us should be crossing, right? We shouldn't venture into isms or bigotry. But we have different opinions. I know Matt and I have different opinions on housing issues or other issues or what have you. And we settle that like gentlemen with old flintlock pistols.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But I mean, we have differences on that, but we're not going to let that bash up our friendship. And in a lot of the things, in most of those sorts of issues, we shouldn't let, we as the viewing public from the outside should not impute, Matt Sanning's opinion on, and just to pick something of absolutely no controversy at all, on marginal tax rates. Whatever, Matt, and I don't want to know your opinions on marginal tax rates, Matt, I promise.
Boy, he was ready to jump into that one.
He was ready to be team 37.8% top marginal rate or whatever.
The 999,777, whatever it was last time around.
Okay, whatever that is not gonna. We should not impute Matt's rate on top marginal tax rates to the work that Lee's Summit Social Services does. But often, especially as the director of the organization, you get that happens. That brush gets painted very broadly.
It's difficult sometimes because we all need to be able to live our lives, and we need to be able to do what we believe, and that's also what compels us to give back to the communities that we live in. And when we're shuttered from that, when we're not allowed to be who we are, to provide for our families or anything like that, it creates a challenge because our volunteers are our life force. They're driving everything that we do. And to create an environment where they're not welcomed, or to create a silo for which they can express their concerns, we have to do that to protect the agency. But we cannot do it in such a restrictive way that we actually run off volunteers. And so I think that that's the big balance. Nobody who volunteers with us conflicts with our mission and what we intend to do for the community.
No, actually, I'm going to come volunteer, but we really don't have.
So
Well,
we used to not have people that conflicted with the. No, I'm sorry.
I want to ask this question. You, Jason, you're an executive director of a nonprofit as well. I want to ask both of you guys this: the type of person that you want to be involved in your organizations, whether they are volunteers, they're volunteer members of your boards of directors. Don't you want people who want to be involved, they want to dive deep, and that type of person comes with a level of critical thinking that also is going to lead to people that have opinions? Don't you want those people? And aren't we now getting into, isn't it really about how we address and we talk to the people with opinions, and how we don't use opinions to push people away?
Well, I would say that the flip side of that is, okay, so we'll found an example, right? Someone comes to my nonprofit and wants to give work to that nonprofit, but they have opinions that are within the bounds of what we'll call polite society, but they are at one end or the other of the spectrum.
Yeah, I'm talking about. I'm talking about in a community, you're going to have opinions about how communities operate and move forward.
I mean, so just in case we're not clear, my nonprofit is downtown Kansas City, Kansas, and so they're.
I forgive you.
It's okay. We have better tacos, and
That's true.
oh wow, I'm drunk.
Whoa!
I'm right.
I've got some people that we need to have some battles.
I like burgers
Maybe
better.
Someone has better. Oh god, this interview's over. Now, anyway, but I would say this. So, just to give a common example that is applicable, I think, in our local community, there are volunteers and people who are involved in my organization that may have different opinions on who is a good or bad commissioner, a city council person, essentially for Kansas City, Kansas. There. My job as a nonprofit is not to spend a whole lot of time debating the relative merits of one commissioner or council person over another. That's for my home life that we do before we turn on the record button on this podcast. But the point being is that I don't think that the problem comes in there. I think the problem comes in when, as a nonprofit person, Matt, you can see if you agree with me on this. You have people who volunteer for you that fall all over the opinion spectrum.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you do not shun them, generally speaking, once again, within the bounds of polite society. We do not shun those. We do not turn those people away for the differences of opinions that they have.
If their actions don't contradict the mission of the agency, and they're conducting themselves exactly as you've said, it's perfect.
I think the problem comes is when power structures attempt to influence or silence those people or put those people in conflict. They put the people in conflict between the opinions they hold that are not related to their organization, to their work for the organization. And they put that and or the organization in tension with one another. And I think that's where the problem falls. And that's on all of us. I mean, and all of us in power, and that includes those of us in the media. We sit here And, if, here, I'll use a completely ridiculous example. Council member so-and-so is a member of the Optimist Clubs, but I'm Team Rotarian, right?
Go Rotarians.
I don't want the council member to come and talk to me about, well, you need to stop saying nice things about the Rotarians, or we're going to push on this or do that, and that puts me in conflict with my off work on that on work, and that I think is where a lot of the problem stems up.
The coolest debate in this community that I've had numerous times is the fact that there are so many good people that have contradicting opinions on how best to serve the community. How cool is it to have a world that you live in where people are actually debating how to do better? And I keep going back to this. Optimists, Kiwanis, Lions, Rotarians, whatever. It doesn't.
Not the Rotarians.
I love my Rotarians. But I mean, we work so hard to see how we can best serve the community. And the Rotarian credo is one who profits most serves the best. And when I think about that, it's like if you're able to give, if you're able to contribute, you're actually going to return that much value into your life. And so why do we take that? Why would we ever consider taking that away from somebody? We want to give them the opportunity to serve, and Lee Summit is darn good at that. We allow people to serve as they want to serve, and we judge them based on their merits and based on what they contribute to the agency. Sometimes people can compartmentalize. They can separate their life. We've had council members. We've had school board members. We've had lots of different people come in and volunteer at our agency. And we didn't talk about politics. We didn't talk about other things. We talked about how we serve our community. And sometimes you can just set that down at the doorstep and you can work together. And I think that's what's cool about Lee Summit and why I love the community I work in.
You had us, that is fantastic and very eloquent way to put that, and you had us until you said you were Team Burger.
Yeah.
I'm Team Burger. I'm sorry.
Now we have broached the unbridgeable gap.
We got we went a little sideways, I think, there at the end, but I think it's important to talk about that other side of things too, because I want to finish up with the other thing is, look, there are lots of organizations and there are lots of things you can do in this community to make an impact, to get involved, and all you really have to do is just ask somebody, what can I do? Where can I go? Raise your hand, because we all have a friend. Everybody's got a friend who is involved in something, who's working on something, whether it's a church, it's a school, it's a local nonprofit, it's something, right? Everybody knows somebody. So just it's easy. Just raise your hand and do what you can, whether it's service, whether it's money, whatever it is, you can do something here locally. I think that's really all we need to do, Jason.
I think that is.
We'll be back on Friday as we talk District 2 City Council race. On Friday, we will have Andrew Felker and Timothy Shrout. Excuse me. We are working on Steve Lee to get him in. Jason, we've had a little trouble scheduling, so we're trying to work that out. He may actually be.
Are we going to work and extend our schedule and make time for a candidate to come in and have an interview?
We are actually going to do that. We're trying to make it happen. He and I have been talking back and forth, trying to figure out a way. And look, my schedule is just as nuts as everybody else, so I get it. We're going to figure something out. Roberta Goff has not responded to any of our attempts to reach out, so I'm pretty sure we're not going to have Roberta on, just as we were unable to get Phyllis Edson, the sitting council member for District 3.
I'm going to note that there's a quantitative difference between us, but I'm going to leave that till the next
There we go. So anyway, we hope you join us on Friday as we talk District 2 City Council race, our attempts to continue to get all of the voices out there in front of the voters so that they can better make their choice on April 7th. We will talk to everybody.
Team Burger.
You know what? Wait, stop. Before I say when we're going to talk to everybody next. No, I'm not going to ask Matt. I don't want his answer. We'll talk to everybody on Friday.
Burger.
Today's episode of the Lee Summit Town Hall podcast is brought to the people by our friends at Shred KC. Jason, if you're looking to change, to start living that healthy lifestyle, these are the guys for you.
They are, and they're going to do it They're going to help you adopt those healthy lifestyles, get those new habits, get those things going without all that pesky like shame or any of that stuff that goes on. It's a positive, supportive environment to help you get to the goals that you want to have so that you feel the best that you can feel.
Real goals, real plans, none of that fad stuff. They're not giving you the fad diets. They're not giving you the crazy new fad workout. These are real plans that are going to help you get there, whether it's group classes or personal training. This is the gym for you. Head on down on 3rd Street. See our friends at Shred KC. You have been listening to Lee Summit Town Hall, a Link to Lee Summit podcast with host Nick Parker, a proud member of the Fredcast Network. You can subscribe to this podcast on most podcast apps and catch us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for all of the news, analysis, and conversations on the Lee Summit community. Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Link to Lee Summit or on Twitter at LS Town Hall.